In this episode of 6 Months to 6,000, I walk Carter through my map of how to grow his YouTube channel. Let's go. What's up, man? There you are.
What's happening? You're recording before I even get in. I hear you.
Well, it's automatically recording.
We're on Fast Times at Ridgemont High here.
What's good, man? So what'd you think of the premiere?
So your ability to edit and your eye is fantastic.
Thank you, man.
I like it. I think there's a lot that I think it's a great place to start when I look back on it, because we're not saying, oh, well, we've already done this 7 times, we're going to give you all of it. Like, we're learning too. And I think that's something that a lot of people will be able to relate to, because I mean, gosh, like, we can know it here, but
Yep,
to put it into practice is something else.
And the environment's changing rapidly around us. So just because it worked and somebody's like, oh, I grew a channel to whatever, great. Do it now. Do it real time, right? Like, yeah, past success doesn't guarantee future results.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was a big takeaway for you?
It was an intense couple days where I had a deadline, and it was uncomfortable for me to know that it had to go out, right? Totally. And we were even like pushing dates a little bit, right? Because we shot it right before July 1st. And then it was like, oh man, we got to edit, we got to get all this stuff, we got to push it. And you were like, oh, I got to get my video done. And like, it was a scramble. But I think it was worth it, right? Because that process allowed me to nail down all the bumpers and the format and how it all works and the thumbnail, and kind of get all the just blocking and tackling things done and out of the way. So I think the next video will be faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I try not to trip myself up on those other things that I think you will coach me up on over the next 6 months and say, hey, those are really important from a eye grabbing standpoint or whatever. But the first goal is the muscle memory, is just get it done, is put it out there, be consistent. Come on, like, let's go. I mean, I actually had somebody reach out to me today, and we didn't talk about this in that video because it hadn't happened yet. And I don't know if I told you, I mean, probably privately, but whatever. But as far as publicly, I'm doing this sort of side series where I'm interviewing friends that I met on, through the chase. And so I'm doing this, like, so I'm preparing videos and I'm shooting videos, and I haven't done a whole lot of editing on those videos while we working on that. But then on the other side, I'm doing these kind of like wind down of my old channel. And so I had somebody from my old channel, old friend group, was like, hey, are you still doing those videos? Or, when's the next one coming out? And I was like, we're working on it, and so that's cool, because that was a really close-knit community. And that's something that I hope to build, moving forward. But one of the things that I've been sitting on for the last 10 days is, it's hard when you're only putting one video out a week or one in 10 days. It's a lot of silence.
And you don't have to feel pressure either way. I mean, I think we made the commitment for this series to do once a week, but you can put out more than that if you want to. I think the hard part about any success that you have on social media or in general is that you feel the pressure to keep on doing it. And there's always going to be that pressure, right? It's like the childhood star in Hollywood that becomes famous from their first big hit, and they were like 9, and now their interests change and they're like, I don't want to be known for that anymore. And they actually it messes them up, right? Because
Mhm.
they're in this constant loop of like, I need to be what people love me for originally, and you don't. But it's very hard to break out of that.
Have you I saw something on the Harry Potter cast,
Yeah.
and that was fascinating because all of those kids were like what you said, they were like 9, 8, 9, 10, whatever when they signed on. But the directors and the adults and like the producers were all like, yo, I'm gonna need you for the next decade. Like your entire life doubled, like, and
Yeah.
the kids and the parents were like, sign me up. But they had no idea. And so there was some documentary and all those kids and they couldn't date each other. They
Oh,
couldn't
wow.
like they had all this stuff written in their contracts.
Wow.
And they were like, I'm leaving, after movie 4 or 5, there were like 8 movies. But they went through all this stuff where it was like, it was cool for the first 4 to 6 years. They were making money, they were famous, and then they were like,
Yeah.
you just can't. Yeah, they
Yeah.
want to do something else. They
Right.
want, like I don't want to be Ron Weasley for the rest of my life, and or Harry Potter for the rest of my life. But it's like, no, from the time you're 9 to the time you're 23, you're Harry Potter, and actually forever that guy's going to be
Yeah,
Harry
that
Potter.
forever. Yeah. It's like Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
you're
That guy
you're
hadn't
never
done
gonna
anything. He's
eh,
like, you see Mark Hamill, yeah, you're Luke Skywalker,
yeah.
and he's
And
like, no, I'm Mark Hamill, and you're like, no, that's cool.
I think he's come to accept it more like in his
Yeah.
later years, like he's just like embraced it. But there's a period in everybody's life that I see that they fight it, right? The framework that I'm going to probably walk you through for the next 6 months
Okay.
is, it might change, but this is kind of my overview of what I think we will walk through,
All
right?
right.
So I'm just going to give it to you, and then I'm going to focus in on the first step, which will be on for the month. There's, well,
So the fun
three,
part about this is I haven't heard this yet. So
right? Exactly. This is
yeah. So
the
as soon as
Dolan method right
whenever
here.
whenever this airs, I will have like a week in advance, and so I will have been working on it. But I'm getting it real time. It's not like, oh yeah, I've been working on all this stuff, and I'm like, cool, I got this. I have no idea what I'm.
Well, the first one's
Benign.
deceivingly simple, and we've already talked about it. I've already given it to you, and it's consistency, right? But there's a lot to that where I think people um say yeah at the beginning because they're excited and they've got a lot of momentum and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do it forever and it's going to be amazing. It's kind of like what we just talked about. You sign up for Harry Potter, you're nobody. You're like, heck yeah, 10 years of my life, like let's go, like 10 movies, like whatever, 5 movies. And then you get some popularity and some fame, you get some money, and you kind of like, I want to do something else, like maybe not, right? Same thing kind of happens when you're a content creator where you either get bored of it, you get tired of it, you burn out on it, you're not seeing any fruit from it, right? And so, and then all the excuses come in, and you might get some hate mail or some hate comments, right? And so all that kind of starts piling up on you to where you're just like, oh, I'm done, I gotta quit. And then somebody's like, well, why'd you quit? You were so, consistency, whatever. And you're like, no, because ding, 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 ding. And like, nobody cares about these excuses except you. And you use those to justify the reason that you stopped. But the fact is, you still stopped. And so consistency is important. But I think to start there is a little controversial because there's a lot of people that would say, oh, you got to get your branding right. You got to get your, format right. You got to get your, whatever, right? You got to figure out what your channel's about, your, audience, you build a community first, like all that kind of stuff. The reason I put it first is because it's all about the craft of it. So you gotta kind of, like you just said, that muscle memory of it, where it's second nature. And now you don't have to think about how to do it. Now you can concentrate on, what am I saying? Because ultimately the what is like what attracts the people. Like it's what you're saying, like how you're saying it. It's the content is still king ultimately. So even though you're a ninja, or you could be a ninja at lighting or thumbnails or headline or whatever, like ultimately they got to like you and like what's happening, or nobody cares, right? And I've seen plenty of like really great videographers, photographers start channels. They talk about nothing interesting and people are just like bored, right? They're just like, I'm done with this, like, and so they don't get any momentum whatsoever. And it's just tough to keep going, right? And then they end up quitting. So let's just get the blocking and tackling knocked out. I think you'll do fairly well at it, but I mean, you have some pretty big challenges coming up with moving and a kid and new baby and like.
So yeah, I mean, I think for me, my goal is to be able. So what I used to do when I put out a video every day for 4 months straight was I would spend like a day knocking out research, and then I would spend like a day recording 5 or 6 videos, and then I'd spend like a day doing thumbnails or doing whatever, and then by the end of day 3, I could post 6 or 7 videos. And so I got a week's worth of work done in 3 days. So if I did that twice in a row, then in one 6-day work week, I got 2 weeks worth of work.
Yep. And that's brilliant. That's called batching.
If I could string that along for 2 or 3 weeks, then I was like 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time. I had like a month's worth of videos. And then if my wife and I wanted to go to Iceland, or we wanted to go to, scuba diving in Bonaire or Turks and Caicos, like it's cool, like I could pack, I could clean the house. I could be a real house husband, and I could spend a couple of days getting everything ready. I could do the yard, whatever, and pack. We go on the trip, come back, do the laundry, clean everything. It's like 2 weeks.
And that's how guys like John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire, he does every day, right?
Yeah.
I assume he's still doing it every day, but like he batches it where he'll line up like 7 or more interviews on a Monday and just knock them all out back to back to back to back. Then he passes it off to his team and he's done for the week, right?
Okay, so question.
Yeah.
Does he wear the same shirt in every interview?
It's a podcast.
Oh, see, that's cheap. What I used to do, and it's like flat out, is I used to pull out all these different shirts and different pants.
Yeah.
And I would record, boom, like take it off, switch. Like, so and then when I would schedule it, I'd be like, oh, junk. Like I'm wearing, like, cause I would do,
nobody cares.
I'd have like 10 or 12 or 15.
That's good
videos.
That you're thinking that far ahead, but nobody cares right now.
Well, I know we're not there yet, but I was just saying I've already been through that. And you're like, oh my God, like I can't do that video next to that video because I have the same shirt on. But they were all recorded within like a day or two of each other.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, look, there's influencers that they go to a conference and they speak like for 2 or 3 sessions and they chop it all up and that's all they're putting out. I mean, ultimately,
you're telling me I don't need to shower every day. Is that what you're telling me?
What?
You tell me I don't need to shower every day?
They can't. I mean, yeah, it's recommended, but no.
I'm losing hair. All right. Anyway.
But guys like Alex Hormozy right now is just, he had an epiphany that was like, oh, I need to 10x my videos to get 10x to get more than just what I'm doing in attention and followers. And he was like, yeah, I 10x'd my attention and my audience, right? Just by doing that. But he flooded. I mean, he just basically, he has like his standard white tank top, right? Cause he's like a muscle guy. And he just like sat at his table and just banged through like a ton of videos. Right. And they would just clip them all out and shared them. And, meanwhile, Jordan Peterson is like in his like pimped out suit and like with suit. Like a great film and lighting, like it looks amazing. Right. But he didn't do that for a long time, so you don't feel like.
And that's my point.
Yeah,
is that I'm probably going to be the lowest quality person you ever coach ever, because it's about, to me, it's about the content. It's not about. I mean. It is about the other stuff later, but really that muscle memory of saying, hey, like I have something worthwhile to say and to share because I've had a lot of different experiences, and hey, like we're going through some crazy times. And so here's, here's my commentary, but I want to hear your commentary back. So that's why I'm putting it out there, because I do want people to comment on it. And I do want to say, hey, like, that's really interesting. And maybe, if your comment is very thoughtful, I'll be like, hey, come on the show, like, let's
Right.
do a recording.
Yep.
And like, that's a really interesting question. Like we had earlier, and, we emailed privately. It's like, man, that's really thoughtful. I hadn't really thought about it that way. And so, uh, you know, cool. I'm about putting out the content, having the conversation. And then as I grow, hopefully by the end of the 6 months, like, we'll look back at this and we'll laugh. But, I'll have, you already did it. You already were pro for your number one video. It's like, okay, cool. You got like a bumper. Cool. You got this, it's like, but what I want to show people is that not having the technical knowledge, or not being sharpened up on the technical knowledge, like, you can just bang through the content and then learn
Yeah.
for free. All right, cool, like, this is a free app, or this is how I can, like, spiffy up, if that's a word. I don't know if that's a word.
Making up words here. Yeah, you can spiffy it up, man. You can just,
Spiffy it up.
but yeah, so it is iterative, and it is helpful if you know how to do some of those things early on. It
Totally.
just means you're going to take a little bit longer. And I've seen some people go the other way too, where they came out and they started doing like all this crazy production level. And then, they were tried out some just like, face on camera, like real quick, like shooting outside, like while they're, at the pool or something. And those like took off more. And they were like, wait a minute, let me start doing more of those. And they actually stopped doing their full production thing for a while and just did
Mhm.
those kind of videos. Right.
Totally.
And if you're going live all the time and those are just your videos, you actually can't, or you need like a big team to be editing that and all that. So the more you go live and the more your message is like relevant, the less production is needed, because your community is counting on the news or the updates that you're giving,
Mhm.
or the cultural, the game commentary or whatever your content is. They care less about, the format. Now, that's not to say that if you figured out those other things that you wouldn't get more people interested, right?
Totally.
So you kind of handicap yourself if you're going to camp out at a level where you're just like, I'm not going to get any better. This is what I'm doing, and this, people are really going to like it or leave it.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, the balance of that is get comfortable with where you are, and then get consistent,
Yep.
but then don't be comfortable
Right.
with
Right.
the consistency. Like, all
Yep.
right, I'm consistently putting out this level.
Yep.
Now that I'm consistent, now that I've flexed that muscle, now that I've worked that muscle, like, cool, I've done it 4 or 5 weeks in a row, 3 or 4 weeks in a row, 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Like, who knows what that number is, 1 or 2 weeks. Like, okay, I can up my level. What's the next thing? And I don't need to take off or bite off any bite that's too big, but what is that next thing? And I think that's where your coaching, your outside knowledge that I don't have, or that you have expertise in, is like, okay, like, what's a bite-sized chunk that I can improve
Right.
my
Yep.
video on, that looks pro but doesn't take 40 hours a week to do,
Right.
or
Yeah.
need
And
another team.
that's the tough part too, is like I'm catering what I'm saying, right, to like what you want to do in your situation. Everybody has a different situation, everybody has different tools available to them, different resources. Some have budget, some have time, some have, teams, some don't, right? It's like the funny story of the guy that he was an entrepreneur, loved Gary Vee, and was like, I'm going to document and not create, right? Like, I'm not going to get creative. I'm just going to have somebody follow me around and film, and I think he said he did it for like 3 or 4, maybe even more, like 5 months or something. And then he's reviewing all the footage and he's like, this is the worst footage ever, the most boring footage ever.
What?
Yeah, he just realized that like it's not that exciting. So you actually need somebody like D-Rock to like make it exciting and edit it and put the music and put the right. Like you
Yeah.
need, if you're just gonna document your life and your life is not that exciting, like you're not always meeting new people and traveling and doing all stuff all the time, then all of a sudden you better be really good at talking about stuff. But it's
So
just a different
so that's your
scenario.
next goal, right? After you finish with my 6 months, your next goal is to take some rando that you don't know, that's not exciting, and then try to edit with music and like light shows and whatever behind, and make their life really interesting. Like, dude, look at this like 5-minute video, and they're just walking down the street, and you're like, bounce, 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 you know, and it's just like,
No,
what?
so it breaks down though. I think
You're like impossible.
yeah, it breaks down unless that's your stick, right? It's like you're just making fun of the fact that like
So
you're
that would
trying to make
actually
this
be
guy.
hilarious if you
Yeah,
could pull that off. Like, you just be like, you should have a yacht, and you should just retire in Tahiti. Like, you should be done.
yeah. If people could figure that out, that we're boring, like wow, they'd be trying that all day. So let me let me just give you kind of the overview.
Yeah, hit
So
me.
there's nine there's nine major steps, and
Right.
then
One
if you
every 3
take
weeks.
yeah, so one every 3-ish weeks. So you got consistency, at least one video a week. Then we get into branding. So now we got to get your headline, you already picked your title of your show, but like what are your fonts, what are your colors,
Thumbnails.
what are your thumbnails, what are your headlines,
Yep.
and then kind of what's your niche. Like I don't know what you picked when YouTube said like what type of video is this, like what'd you pick?
Ooh, good question. You should have let me know that before we went live, or
Oh, it's
before we
okay.
recorded this. I have no idea what I picked. I probably picked just general. Like, I wouldn't, or
I
I
don't
have
think there is a general.
really, okay, then
Yeah.
I didn't pick that.
All right.
It'll be
Check
interesting.
in. There's our check in. I've got 312 from 304.
I subscribed.
Thank you. So, I mean, what is that? I
That's a
got
lot, man. That's 8.
8 more. Oh, yay for me. All right.
It's
You
more
have
than me.
469. 5 more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
5
So,
more.
so we're moving up. Now, this is pretty sad because actually I lost some subscribers too. Because a lot of the people that subscribed were thinking I was going to start doing like short films.
Yep. Yep.
And so pretty much all these people are people that were looking forward to this kind of sci-fi content.
100%.
So I'm anticipating like as I get more annoying with these videos, people are just going to be like, nope, nope, nope.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, look, we only got 8 views on the premiere.
Right.
One thing I learned, which is really humbling, is when I started promoting this on all my socials, nobody cares. Like literally nobody cares.
Yep.
I mean, a few of my close friends were like, hey, good job. Let's do it. Let's see it. But I mean, they weren't clicking through. They weren't like getting on the alert wait list. You know how on a premiere you can say like notify me when it goes live.
Yep.
Nobody clicked that.
Yep.
Which tells me that nobody really clicked through, right? So it's
100%.
it's very humbling to be at small numbers when I've worked for companies that have hundreds of thousands of people that are doing things.
Yep.
So it's very interesting on a personal level to see this, where it's like, okay, you have 8 views and you did all the personal promotion you could do on your channels. But if you only have 300 followers, right, it's like you're not going to get percentage wise the views. So that's understandable. So I'm excited to see where it goes.